Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Noah from PhoneDog.com, and this is the Apple iPad. It's, you know what it is. You've heard about it. It's impossible to escape the massive onslaught of hype and media coverage about this thing. But here it is. I've had it since Saturday. Today is Tuesday. So, you know, it's only been like, what is that, 3-4 days? But long enough that I've gotten a good feel for it and figured, you know, I could go ahead and give you a review on it. In a word, or I guess in a sentence, the iPad is, I think, entirely unnecessary. I don't think there's anybody out there who absolutely needs one of these things the way that you could say that you need a laptop or desktop computer, cell phone or smartphone to kind of get along and communicate and do work and stuff in the modern world. But that being said, it may not be necessary, but it's fantastically fun to use. There's a lot you can do with it. It works really well at what it does. It can do a lot of things, and it's only going to be able to do more as time goes on, because really I think the big deal here is the apps, and as people come up with more and more creative apps to run on this thing, it's only going to get better. That being said, there's also a lot that it can't do in comparison to other tablet computers, netbooks, laptops, that kind of thing. So for all the people, you know, it's not for everybody. What it does really well, and it's really fun to use, but it definitely has limitations. So we'll get into those. Also, we're going to do a bunch of app reviews, a bunch of app review videos from myself. Also, Adriana has one, so there'll be more coverage from her on PhoneDog as well as over on today'siphone.com, so check that out. And for those of you who actually still read, I know there's a couple of you out there, I've got a little written mini review up on PhoneDog, and you know, Adriana's got coverage and everything, so you can check that out as well. But real quick, in a nutshell, this is the 16 gigabyte model. It's the cheapest one, $499 plus tax. Yes, I bought it. No review loaners on this one, and we wanted to make sure we got the coverage up because, you know, it's PhoneDog, but we also cover other mobile tech. We've done stuff before on netbooks and other tablet computers, the NVIDIA stuff, that kind of thing. So, you know, we wanted to get this out to you. Love it or hate it. There's lots of people interested in it. So anyway, there's three models: 16 gig, 32 gig, 64 gig. With Wi-Fi, $499, $599, $699 US dollars respectively, and then the 3G equipped versions, the ones that will run on AT&T's 3G network here in the US, those will be shipping later on this month, later on in April, and you're basically just paying $130 more for the 3G. So this 16 gigabyte model is $499, the 3G one will be $629 when it comes out, and then you pay by the month for your service, for the 3G service if you want it. But this is just the Wi-Fi model. And anyway, let's check it out. Alright, so we'll start off with a little size comparison of this thing. To get an idea of the size of the iPad, I've got it here with a laptop computer and a couple of smartphones. So here's an iPhone 3GS, Apple iPhone 3GS. HTC HD2, which is the largest touchscreen smartphone on the market in America right now, maybe in the world, although, you know, phone, what you say is a phone, you know, a little dicey because there's some tablet computers out there that do phone calls. Anyway, point being, one of the larger smartphones out there, screen size, iPad, and then a 13-inch Apple MacBook Pro. So, you know, Apple said that the iPad is meant to kind of slot in between smartphone and laptop in terms of both size and functionality, and you can see size-wise, you know, it does. iPhone has a 3.5-inch display. Here it is. The HTC HD2 has a 4.3-inch display, so you can see there, you know, quite a bit larger. And then you get to the iPad, which has a 9.7-inch display. And so we'll put the, you know, two devices there, and you can see you move from smartphone size to iPad size, and it's quite a bit larger, 4.3 inches, you know, massive for a smartphone, but nothing compared to 9.7 inch. Resolution-wise, you've got 800 by 480 pixels on the HD2 here, and then 1024 by 768 on the iPad. And then you move to the iPad compared to the size of an actual laptop computer. And again, this is one of your, you know, smaller full-size laptop, 13.3 inches, iPad 9.7, so quite a bit smaller. But even more noticeably, it's quite a bit thinner and lighter than a full-on laptop. Now, obviously, I'm not comparing it to a netbook here, but compared to a laptop computer, the iPad is much thinner, much lighter. So, all right, so we'll take a look first real quick here at the industrial design of the device. And I think Apple really nailed it. Whatever you think about the styling, let alone the whole Apple, product experience and the software and all that kind of stuff, just as an object, the form factor, I think it's really nice. It's, aluminum and glass. It's got that, that Apple look with the aluminum and everything. And very simple, one button on the front. On one side here, you've got a volume rocker switch and a switch that actually locks the screen from rotating. So once that switch is flipped, the screen won't rotate on you. You unflip it, and the screen rotates in 4 different directions. On top here, you've got a switch that turns the screen on and off, display lock. And then you've got a headphone jack and a microphone port. And then on the bottom, you've got your dock connector. It's an iPod, iPhone style 30-pin dock connector. And then you've also got 3 little cutouts for the speaker. So then you've got one button on the bottom here. That's your home button. Again, like on an iPhone or iPod Touch. One thing about the device is, before I actually got it and I just saw the mock-up, the photos of it and the launch and everything, I was kind of annoyed that there was such a wide bezel on the screen, and that Apple hadn't just given the whole front panel over to the display. Now that I'm using it, though, I've used it for a few days, I actually kind of like it because the bezel gives my thumb somewhere to rest without getting in the way of the content. So we'll go back to the web here so you can see on a whole web page there, holding the device naturally, even with one hand as well, my hand kind of comes over the edge and holds it. But with the bezel there, I'm not actually blocking any of the web content. Any of the content rather on the screen, which is kind of nice. So I actually think the bezel is actually kind of cool, even though at first I was a little annoyed by it. I think on a smartphone, something that you hold in one hand, you don't want the bezel because you're not really getting in the way as much when you hold it, and you want the whole, as much of the front panel, there I am, what's up, as much of the front panel as you can given over to the display. But on something like this, it's harder to hold for a long period of time without kind of wrapping your hand around it more to kind of brace it a little more because it's heavier. So that's something that I think is really nice. Also, the curved back, not only does it kind of create the illusion of the device being thinner than it really is, but it also makes it a little more ergonomic to hold, which is nice. The screen lock button is actually pretty cool because the accelerometer is fairly sensitive and sometimes the screen will rotate a little more than you want it to. So it's nice to have the option to lock it. That being said, I think it's great that it rotates in all 4 ways because you can just kind of pick it up and use it however you want. And it's nice to be able to flip back and forth between the landscape and portrait modes. And there's some apps like Tweetdeck that actually have slightly different functionality depending on what mode you're in. So here's Tweetdeck for iPhone. It's for iPad. It's a Twitter app. And if I hold it this way in landscape mode, I've got one view. Hold it the other way, and the view actually changes. I've got this big window up there, so if I click on a tweet, I get, not only the whole tweet there with my options for the tweet, but then information about the person who tweeted. So here's Sydney, our Phone Dog editor, and you get a nice big panel up there with info on her, whereas if I go back to the other mode, you don't have that panel. So that's kind of cool that some of the apps coming out have not just different, views, it's not just that they rotate the view of the app, but actually they have different functionality, which is kind of neat. I guess it could be kind of annoying also, depending on your perspective, but, kind of cool. Anyway, industrial design-wise, there you go. The display, like I said, 9.7-inch, capacitive touch, multi-touch enabled. It's a glass front. The display is gorgeous. It looks really great. HD video content especially looks great. We'll get to that a little more in a second. It is a fingerprint magnet. There's kind of nothing you can do about that at this point, I don't think, because I don't think anybody's invented display technology that is, super responsive and entirely resistant to fingerprints. That being said, you can see now that it's off, just smudges and fingerprints everywhere. Yeah, you're going to want to, you have one of the things you're going to want a cloth to clean it off. And it cleans off pretty easily, so it doesn't matter. You don't really notice fingerprints when you're using it unless you're looking at content that has a dark background, and then you definitely do. So, that's just something to be mentioned.